We're at the Facebook 2012 overview. As I mentioned, we have Martin Stoll from Sparkloft. We have Ori, let me get your last name here right. Ori Applebaum from Sparkloft Media as well. And Maya Grinberg, fantastic, from Wildfire, a Google company now. So I know somebody live in the flesh from Google, so fantastic. So I will let them get up here and speak. We have 3 presentations, 1, 2, 3. We'll do Q&A at the end. I'll walk around and we'll get the questions from the audience. So with that, Mr. Stoll, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Troy. Good morning, everybody. The most important thing about this session is that as we understand it as presenters, there is a competition between all presenters who does the best session, and the winner gets a $300 American Express card. Maya, Ori, and I are the most competitive presenters in the world. We are out to win this for you. So if there's any questions at the end we did not answer to your satisfaction, you can give us your evaluation sheets and we fill them out for you just to make it easier. So yeah, I promise this is going to be the best session of the conference. So, this is the first session on the social track, talking about Facebook, as the 1 billion pound gorilla in the room. How many went yesterday on the tour to Facebook? About half, okay. And so, I'm kicking this off and taking a little bit bigger picture approach and talking about, where's Facebook coming from, and what are the overall big trends in social, what do they mean for Facebook, and what do they mean for everybody in tourism and travel marketing. So just one quick slide about Sparkloft. For those of you who have not heard about us, we're based in Portland, Oregon. We have clients on 5 continents. 90% of our business is travel and tourism, ranging from helping clients with strategies to ad buys, campaigns. We build applications. We do stuff in the meetings and convention space. Some of the clients who we work with in the hotel space, like Atlantis in the Bahamas, the 3,500 hotel property, attractions, airlines. We work with Virgin, with South African Airways, with Germanwings, and we have a lot of tourism clients from National Tourist Office like South Africa or Fiji, state DMOs like Oregon and Georgia, and then a lot of city CVBs around the world. So, as I was preparing for this presentation, I thought I'd go and look at the agenda for eTourism Summit a year ago. How many were here a year ago? Also half. So, at Sparkloft Media, we go and we speak at a lot of conferences. I'd say, almost a conference every other week. And I can honestly say eTourism Summit is the conference we go to learn, where we learn the most. Because, the speakers, there's a lot of speakers, a lot of forward-thinking presentations. So I went through the agenda and looked at what did we talk about a year ago. And so these are the sessions that were covered last year on the social media track. So we talked about how do you build quality followers. There was an advanced Facebook workshop. We talked about LinkedIn. It was about maximizing engagement. And of course, the never-ending question of return on investment. Why are we doing this? Is anybody making money with this? And so on. So you look at this agenda, from a 2012 perspective, and you say, okay, there's other stuff that, we did not talk about. Why did we not talk about this? So, for example, a year ago, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I look at it is, a year ago, Pinterest was not such a big subject as it is today. And you look at where Pinterest was in September 2011 and where it's now, and the growth that it has gone through. And I think that's one of the exciting things, but also the big challenges when it comes to social media. And Pinterest just one example of how fast moving that space is. That we were at the leading industry conference a year ago, and this platform basically was not on the agenda. You look at Instagram. So this is a Comscore statistic that came out a couple of weeks ago, that there is now more mobile users for Instagram than there are for Twitter. And a year ago, we probably had said that Twitter is the most used social platform, where Facebook, what's going on with Facebook on mobile? On mobile, you use Twitter. And now Instagram is bigger. And then we had some discussions yesterday. From my perspective, I think Instagram is the single biggest opportunity for tourism marketers at the moment, not in overall size, but in terms of where the industry as a whole is and the gap to where it could be is the biggest, in my opinion. Anybody seen this social network that has had this kind of growth since last year? Anybody know what it is? A little bit hard to see because I flipped it around. That's the Facebook stock price since the IPO. So when you I think another big factor that has impacted social media over the last 12 months, the build up to the Facebook IPO, and then the slow fizzle in terms of stock price. All the discussions: how is Facebook going to monetize mobile? Rolling out new products. Is it just is the hype over, or did they just butcher the IPO, and so on? And then, that's the next thing that's going to come. Anybody seen this? That's I'm calling it. This is the future, the next big social network. Anybody? This is what the new MySpace is going to look like. That's going to launch in the next weeks. You can sign up at the moment and get an invite. They're going to keep the old and the new MySpace parallel. And it looks a lot like Pandora meets Pinterest. So they're going to focus on music and entertainment. And I think a year from now, probably going to have a session at eTourism Summit about how can travel marketers use the new MySpace. So I quickly want to talk about, from our perspective, what we think is next and where it's going, and then tie it back and looking at Facebook, because overall, of course, Facebook, while a big force, is embedded in an overall social ecosystem and trends that that tear in it. So the 5 things I quickly want to talk about: mobile and how the iPhone really has changed a lot. It's not that we know it, but I think it's really important to keep that in mind when you look at the Facebook tour yesterday. A lot of it was mobile. Another thing I want to talk about: how social media is making us all very vain and all about sharing our lives, how irrelevant they are. And it's all about us and us being the center of attention. Talk about customer curation and how people can now take over being experts, influencer marketing. And the last point I want to talk about is data. I know what you did, anything you did, anytime, because there's so much data out there. Okay, so let's dive into it. So one of the arguments that I want to make when it comes to social is that starting with the iPhone, it has really driven a lot and changed a lot. And I give you 3 quick examples where we think this is going. So the first example is this little button on top. It's a little bit hard to see. The button says, "I'm hungry." Has anybody heard about this story? Honestly, it's one of my favorite stories because it makes such a nice case. So this is a button from a pizzeria in Dubai, and you put that button on your refrigerator. When you get home from work and you're hungry, you push the button that says, "I'm hungry." You go take a shower, and 20 minutes later, the doorbell rings, and there's the guy from the pizzeria bringing you your favorite pizza. The way it works is that this button is connected through Bluetooth with your cell phone that is connected through an app with the point-of-sale system in the pizzeria, where they have your credit card stored, and they know what your favorite pizza is. And so there's no calling and explaining the address for the 15th time and giving them your credit card number and so on. The reason why I think this is a really powerful story is that when you go into this from a marketing perspective, my first reaction is, oh, so stupid. They not should have done 1 pizza. They should have done 5 buttons, So there's a button for pepperoni, and there's one for Hawaiian, and there's one for vegetarian, and so on. But the beauty why this works is that there's only 1 button, and the only decision you have to make is, am I hungry or not? And this simplicity is what drives sales. And I think when you look at, comes also back to the data, there is so much data out there. There is so many choices out there. You can listen to any song basically ever recorded anytime. You can buy on iTunes. You can look at any movie ever produced on Netflix at any time. And it's overwhelming. And I think it's hindering, from a sales perspective, it's too much. People are overwhelmed and then they'll make a decision. And I think you can tie it back to websites, for example. If you have too many share options on your website, people will not share. Whereas if is this a part of your website where Pinterest is going to be stronger and you can have a pin it button, or is it a Facebook button? It will ultimately lead to better conversions, more interaction, because people don't want to think too much and you will make it easy. I give you another example why simpler, I think moving forward things will have to get simpler. I used to go to the Art Institute in Portland and take Photoshop classes because I really like photography. I don't do that anymore because now I go and do it on the iPhone, and I go and have Camera Plus. I put a filter over it, looks beautiful. Brings me to the next point, customer, or how Instagram has changed stuff. So now anybody can take beautiful photos. And we talked about citizen journalism. I think now we are to citizen cinematographers. I think for destinations, that's a big point. And the last one is when you look at Instagram, people taking photos of themselves. So it's amazing, where people were saying Twitter, everybody's using Twitter to talk about themselves. Instagram is a magnitude of that. And I think for tourism marketers, as I said before, it's the biggest opportunity, because if you get people in your destination when they're on the ground talking about what they're doing, taking photos, not of themselves, but themselves with a sunset and so on, huge marketing opportunities. One quick slide about social curation. So this is something I think we showed 2 years ago, Polyvore. Those who were here remember. You basically go and you assemble an outfit. So you go and you say, I want a dress, I want shoes, and I want a belt. And when I hear a dress, shoes, and belt, for me it sounds a lot like a hotel room, a restaurant, and an attraction pass. So people creating outfits, people creating itineraries and sharing them, and yet in the tourism industry, this has not taken off yet. Another example, customer curation. Has anybody seen this? It's a Crate and Barrel Offspring, so CB2. You can go there and you can buy stuff on an e-commerce site, and they have a section where they basically show you what are the most pinned items on their Pinterest board, and they are dynamically pulled into their e-commerce store. Because if a lot of people pin it, it's probably a product that a lot of people like to buy. So you basically create a dynamic website based on curation that people are doing on a Pinterest board. Influencer marketing, 2 quick examples. The Gap did one where they turned over their fall collection to fashion bloggers. They went to the fashion bloggers and said, here's everything we're bringing out. You guys take photos of yourself in those fashion outfits. And put it on your website, so you have fashion bloggers like Refinery29 that probably would never talk about Gap because it's not cool and hip enough. Now going and expanding to new audiences for the Gap. Or you look at Instagram that invited Evian Water invited top Instagram users that had the biggest followers to the US Open on a press pass. To have behind-the-scenes photos. So, you're doing that with travel bloggers and so on. It's only going to get more. The last one, data. I'll give you 3 quick examples. Anybody here willing to admit that they use the Canoodle app? Have you heard of that? So the point I'm trying to make this is if you give people a reason why they should share data, they will forget privacy and share it. Canoodle is the best example. It's a relationship app. You and your partner sign up for it, and then when you do, I buy flowers for my wife can give me points for that, and so on. And it gives you the app learns about how your relationship is and makes recommendations for you. There's also this for your eyes only button where you can send each other messages and photos. And I'd argue, if you're willing to share your relationship stuff with an app, then you are for sure, willing to share other information. Gympact in the middle. Anybody using that? So it's an app where you go and you pledge how many times you're going to go to the gym, and then you give your credit card. So you say, I'm pledging $20. I'm going to go to the gym 3 times this week. If you don't check in at the gym 3 times in that week on Foursquare, the credit card $20 are deducted, and they are distributed amongst those people who pledged that they would go and then really did it. So you can now make money going to the gym. And then the last example, some of you might have seen it, KLM Open Seating, where you go and you pick a seat on KLM. You can pick with, you can see on Facebook or LinkedIn the profiles of the people who have already picked a seat and used the app. So you can see who you sit next to. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, from a tourism marketing perspective, I think data we are just at the beginning of using data to create more relevant experiences, and there is no other place with more data than Facebook. So when you look at Facebook and how they have grown over to the 1 billion users, there's a couple of things how all these trends that I showed you, what they mean for Facebook. So yesterday they said, mobile is what they got to figure out, and I think it has been well publicized. One of the things, that's why they paid $1 billion for Instagram. Data stuff, when you look at some of the most forward-thinking apps that use Facebook, you can create a much more relevant experience. What I found also interesting yesterday with Facebook is how much they stress the need for content, and that's basically what Ori is going to talking about, how EdgeRank and good content in Facebook works. And then all those, tying it together is because when you talk about Facebook and marketing on Facebook, I think it's really important to keep in mind, Facebook has to start making your money. So to make more money, they need to come up with better products, including stuff for tourism marketers, whether it's mobile or using the data they have in a different way. And I think moving forward, we will see a lot more applications from Facebook that you can use for tourism marketing. So that was my quick intro slide, and with that, I'll turn it over to Ori to talk about content and EdgeRank. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So how many of you in here have published content before on Facebook for a page? Awesome, lots of people. How many of you have heard of EdgeRank? Okay, a few. So today's presentation is designed to help you understand EdgeRank. Now, why is that important? Well, Facebook uses EdgeRank, it's an algorithm, a formula, to determine what content is important. The more important your content is to Facebook, the more people who get to use it. So hopefully, after you understand the variables that make up EdgeRank, you'll be able to come up with better content and hopefully maximize the reach that you have on Facebook. So I want to start by first talking about a big new feature that Facebook introduced in the past year, and that is Facebook Timeline. And Timeline essentially made it easier for brands to express themselves more visually and to be able to interact better with their fans. Now, with Timeline, visual content becomes a lot more important. In fact, a product manager at Facebook says it's a lot more visual. And brands are learning to show, not tell, through visual stories. And it's a really big trend in social media right now, just showing your content visually. Now, another important piece to talk about is the Facebook newsfeed. This is where Facebook shows you what it thinks are the most important stories. And this is also the primary location where your fans are most likely to interact with your content. And in fact, 25% of the time that Facebook users spend on the site tends to be looking at the newsfeed. And they are 40 to 150 times more likely to see your content in the newsfeed than to physically go to your page and look at the content. And another interesting fact to mention is that every day on Facebook, over 1 billion pieces of content are shared. So that's a lot of content. And I always find it interesting to see what content Facebook decides to show me on my newsfeed. So I actually took a look last week, and I want to share with you what came up. So here again is my newsfeed. And the first story that came up was one from my dad about our dog Bagel. And of course I found that interesting because I'm obsessed with my dog. The next story that came up was one from a brand. It was from Wired magazine, and I think it actually was talking about the milestone of Facebook reaching 1 billion fans. And because I work in social media, I also found that pretty interesting. So good job, Facebook. Then the next two stories were from a coworker and a friend, both about the presidential debate last week. And then Facebook showed me some other stories on the ticker. And of course, the most natural question for marketers is, how do you get your content to appear on the newsfeed? And like over here in the center. And the answer to that is through EdgeRank. So now I'm coming back to really what I want to talk about. EdgeRank is an algorithm that was developed by Facebook that essentially determines which type of your content is going to appear in the user's newsfeed and in what order. And EdgeRank is made up of 3 variables: affinity, weight, and time decay. But this is kind of confusing, so I want to use an example to make it a little bit more clear. And the example that I'm going to use is that of a newsstand. So here's a newsstand that's owned by Facebook. And there's a guy working for this newsstand. Can anybody guess his name? EdgeRank. Good guess there, yeah. So this is Mr. EdgeRank. And Mr. EdgeRank has a job. His job is to figure out what magazines to show you and in what order. Now let's say Mr. EdgeRank thinks that I'm coming to the newsstand and I'm not particularly interested in Vogue magazine because I swear I've never looked at it before. he's probably going to hide it in the back of the newsstand. But EdRank pays close attention to what I'm doing, and he always sees me talking about technology. He sees me marveling at my Android phone. So he's definitely going to show me magazines about technology, like Wired Magazine. Now, I didn't know Martin was such a romantic guy, but apparently he buys flowers for his wife, so he's probably going to show Martin some romantic magazines, or maybe Martha Stewart or something. So the point is, he knows that he has little time to capture your attention, so he's going to try to maximize the display of content that will be interesting to you. And on Facebook, that translates into the interaction that you have with content. How often and how do you interact with the content that your friend posts or the content that a brand does? And over here, the connections that are in blue signify the people that I'm closest to, or the brands that I'm closest to. So Facebook is going to assign a higher affinity with these connections, and I'm going to see more of their content. Now, the same also applies for negative interactions. So if I unfriend a person or if I unlike a brand, Facebook is going to think we're probably breaking up and going to lessen the affinity, and I won't see as much content. Now, going back again to the newsstand, and EdRank knows that for Facebook, there are certain types of items that are more important or profitable. And in this newsstand, for example, let's say Facebook came out with a new product. Let's call it Facebook Water. And every time somebody bought Facebook Water, Facebook made a commission on it. Where do you think Facebook is going to put the water? Yeah, obviously on the most prominent shelf. And this works the same way on the newsfeed. On Facebook, there are many different types of stories: photos, status, videos, links, and many more. And each one of them carry a different weight. Now, generally speaking, Facebook prefers to give a higher weight to content that people will engage more with on the site. Now, Facebook also tends to give higher weight to content that is shared directly on Facebook as opposed to content that is linked somewhere else. So it wants you to upload a video on Facebook, not to YouTube. And then Facebook is constantly introducing new features, and sometimes it seems like it's assigning higher weights to them. For example, recently Facebook launched Facebook Offers, and we've actually experimented with that at Sparkloft, and we've noticed that it exhibited some higher weight because the story was being pushed on the news feed for more of our fans. So then going back one last time to the newsstand, EdRank knows that certain stories are more time sensitive. So for example, the New York Times from yesterday is not going to be as important as the New York Times of today. And I guess unless you're a historian or something. But then if you go back to Facebook, that translates to the freshness of a story. What time of day, what hour of the day have you posted it, and when are your fans most likely to see that content? And it's important to play around and figure out the best way to do that. And I'm going to talk about in a second on how you can. But those are essentially the three variables that make up EdRank: affinity, weight, and time decay. And while these variables are known, Facebook doesn't actually reveal the algorithm, the mechanism in which how it sorts all of the news stories. So we don't know how all the magazines are displayed exactly in the newsstand. However, we do know that EdRank is dependent on engagement. So the higher your engagement is, the more likely your EdRank will be higher. And so how do you evaluate the engagements of your posts? Well, this is where you can use Facebook Insights. Facebook Insights is a key tool in helping you understand how your content is doing. And it gives you very important metrics. Things like what times of days are people looking at your content? What hours of the day are they looking at your content? Where is your demographic from? What type of stories are they interested in? Do they like videos more? Do they like photos more? What subjects tend to be more interesting to them? So then, after you look at all these metrics and evaluate the effectiveness of your engagement, then you can start looking at your competitors and use third-party tools to look at their engagements. There are a bunch of competitors out there, including Wildfire by Google. And at Sparkloft, we also developed our own tool to help us understand engagement rates and competitive benchmarks. And after looking at some of the patterns of engagement, we have found that certain types of posts tend to do better than others. And I'm going to share with you, hopefully, some concrete examples on how you can make your posts more engaging. So here are some 6 ways to improve your engagement. So the first one is that you want to post content that is going to be relevant to your fan base. If it's about tourism or travel, you want to promote a destination without being too pushy. So in this example, one of our clients, Travel Oregon, wanted to promote wine country on Memorial Day weekend. So it posted the following: "Sure, Oregon's got great wine, but the views are nice too. Click like if you'd prefer to start off a long weekend looking at this." So this was a very cool way to kind of get people to think about it without telling them, hey, come check out the wine country and buy stuff. And it got a lot of engagement. Next, you want to publish at the right time. And that takes fine-tuning and looking at insights to figure out when your fans are most likely to engage with you. And also, you want to post things that are relevant to people at the right time where they are. For example, this week it was Canadian Thanksgiving a day, and so for one of our clients, South African Airways, a lot of the fan base for that page happens to be Canadians. So we posted a story for them about that. You also want to keep your content short. A lot of studies say different things about the ideal length of characters that you want to have. And again, you kind of want to experiment and see what works best for you. But we have found that a strong headline and a good picture usually tends to do the trick. And here we just posted a picture of an elephant, and you just used 5 words: a South African traffic jam. And that got a lot of engagement. You want to call for action with your posts. Tell fans what you want them to do. Click like if you love traveling to Europe. Fill in the blank if you'd rather be sitting on this beach. Things like that. Those types of posts tend to generate 90% more engagement. Also, of course, you want to keep things visual, just like the trend that I was talking about. Visual is really important. And then lastly, you want to offer exclusives. You want to make fans feel specials, whether it's through sweepstakes or offering deals. Those types of posts tend to do really well. And like I was talking earlier, Facebook released a new feature, Facebook Offers, and we tested it with one of our clients last week, South African Airways, and we saw unbelievable engagements with that post. In fact, we had over 3,000 claims in a matter of 72 hours, and we saw 2,000% return on investment. And again, this is because Facebook is probably assigning a higher weight to this type of story because it's trying to push it out right now. So hopefully, now that you understand the factors that affect EdgeRank, you can come up with more engaging content and therefore maximize more people on Facebook. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Maya Grinberg, and I'm also going to talk about engagement, but we put a little bit of a different spin on it, and I'm hoping to inspire a little bit of friendly competition among the attendees that are attending this conference, and I'll tell you why in a second. But first, a little bit about me. I'm the Chief Evangelist and Social Media Manager at Wildfire. We were recently acquired by Google. And what my job entails is that I have to manage the voice of our brand. So everything that I learn about social media and best practices and how to take our B2B software brand and make it engaging for our audience and customers, I also have to turn around and deliver as education and knowledge to those very same customers and audience. So I create most of our webinars, our white papers, reports, blog posts, and things like that. When I'm not doing that for Wildfire, I'm doing it for outside publications like the Huffington Post, Social Media Examiner, and Social Media Today. So, why did I say I wanted to inspire a little bit of friendly competition? Because we actually crunched the numbers among the 130 plus travel brands that are here at this conference. And we found that you had really interesting engagement statistics. So what I'm hoping that you get by the end of this presentation is a baseline average for how you and all of your peers in this room are doing and beyond this room, and also who the top 3 are. So hopefully they're actually here to witness their triumph. So out of the 130 plus travel brands, most of you guys are from the United States and Canada. 96% of you have a link to your Facebook page directly on your home website, right? Which absolutely speaks to the fact that there's over 1 billion users on Facebook. It's one of the biggest networks out there to find those consumers. And you guys are absolutely staying true to that. 89% of you have a link to your Twitter page on your websites. 65% have a link to your YouTube channel, and 15% have a link to your Google Plus page, right? So that's slowly growing. And then only 63% have cross-platform presence across YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Why is this such an important fact that I'm bringing it up? Because social media is not just a marketing channel to be siloed all into itself. It's not only about Facebook. All of the different social media networks have their own merits, and we can talk about that as we go through them. But we're going to focus on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook because collectively, that is where the most large population is. Facebook with 1 billion users, Twitter with approximately 140 million active users, and YouTube with 800 million. So the typical page size for attendees here at this summit is 11,700 fans. So right away, you know how you're doing if you're above or below average in terms of the size of your community. The average growth in the industry, this is for the month of August. From the beginning of August to the end of August, the average brand sitting in this conference grew about 2.3%. I'm sorry, in the industry, so travel in general. But in this audience, the people that came here, the growth was higher at 3.6%. So it seems like maybe it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You guys come here to get educated about the latest news and trends, and you are doing better than average for the industry. How does attendee engagement metrics, how do they compare to the industry average? Well, in general, if we're looking just at likes and comments, for a single post in the month of August, the industry average amount of likes is 89. For you guys at this conference is 374, so you are markedly posting better, more engaging content. So that's 4x better performance. In terms of comments, your commenters tend to be 2.7% as prolific, so you're doing a great job. What's the landscape like on Twitter and YouTube? Well, on average, a brand at this conference has tweeted about 2,000 times and has just over 3,500 followers. On YouTube, you have about 83 channel subscribers, which is huge because every time they log into YouTube and you have uploaded a new commercial or radio spot or some new content that you want them to watch about your brand, they will see it in their feed. Collectively, you have about 72,000 video views, no matter where those videos from YouTube are scattered across the web. The most interesting part that I really wanted to bring up about YouTube is that about 12% of all of your videos that are viewed on your homepage of your YouTube channel. So I would say that it's pretty important to log in and make sure you're controlling that homepage experience. You can make sure that a video auto launches when a user visits, it just starts playing. You can control what they see on the first page. You can control whether they see playlists or a single video and so on. Because 12% of that viewership is coming from the homepage, you want to make sure you're optimizing that experience. So, who has the biggest community? Here's where the competition part comes in. First place goes to Las Vegas. Is anybody here from Las Vegas? There you go. Congratulations. You have grown the biggest community because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. The average travel marketer in attendance has about 22,000 combined fans, followers, and subscribers across YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Las Vegas has cultivated a community with almost 1 million followers in their community across these 3 networks. Second place goes to Myrtle Beach, so silver medalist there with 576,000 members in their community. And third place goes to Florida with 564,000. So actually, these numbers are current as of last week. It's possible that this week there's a little bit of a competition to second place going on, but the biggest community is not necessarily the same as the most engaged community, right? And we all know that. Quality does not equate to quantity, and so these numbers might be different as we take a look at engagement. When we think about engagement, it's important to ask how you guys are communicating with your fans and how the travel industry in general is using social to communicate with fans. When we crunched these numbers, we saw for all the attendees at the eTourism conference, 2,500 messages generated over 2 months, right? Of all these messages, a large percentage of them are photos, which is great because as we learned from Ori, photos have a huge weight on Facebook in particular. They also have a very similar amount of exposure on the other networks and are very popular, especially for travel marketing. Second largest amount of posts are attributed to links posts, right? Where you guys are linking to various places like an offer that you're hosting on a microsite, or you're linking back to your website. So those are two incredibly popular things. But notice, video only has 5%. When you're a travel destination, you probably have a lot of videos under your belt that you've collected from all of the tourist locations. Maybe you're a convention center and you have videos of local events. Those are only being shared 5% of the time. So we need to ask, now that we know what you're actually posting, what's resonating with your audience? What do they want to see? What are they telling you is most engaging? Well, we looked at photo posts, and photo posts on average for this audience at the eTourism Summit. Photo posts get 589 likes, 30 comments, and 61 shares. Videos get 263 likes, 12 comments, and 39 shares, and videos are 4 times more engaging than non-video posts. So we already know you guys know what you're doing with photo posts. You post them all the time, and they're very popular with users, so you're definitely doing that right. But videos are getting underutilized by this particular crowd at the eTourism conference and by the travel industry in general. Users want to see videos. They are engaged by them. Videos are 4 times more engaging than the next non-video type of post, so you want to be using them more if you have them at your disposal, right? So it's not to say you have to hire a video crew to start taking videos of you everywhere and post them, but if you have these assets, you should be using them more actively. How does this engagement translate to the purchase decision, right? Maybe users just like to upvote videos and they don't actually convert to anything. Well, research from Google and Ipsos Media shows that 74% of affluent travelers say that they were prompted to book something after they watched an online video. 70% of all types of travelers that were interviewed watched videos that were created by hotels, airlines, cruises, tours, etc. I can give you an anecdote. I was recently trying to choose a cruise vacation, and because all the Royal Caribbean cruise ships sound the same to me, Voyager, Explorer, Fascinator, Extravagance, I wasn't sure what the boat would look like, so we went to YouTube and we took a video tour of the boat so that I could have an idea of whether it was a newer one, an older one, before I decided to book that cruise. And now, the top prize for most engaged audience, it actually goes to Florida, so you'll see that we flipped it around in terms of size and community. The most engaged ratio goes to Florida, with 3,858 likes, 116 comments, and 506 shares on average per post for the month of August. So despite having a comparatively smaller audience among the top 3 destinations, and by smaller I mean huge audience at 500,000, but comparatively to double that size, it's a different kind of audience there. Visit Florida still is the most engaging travel marketer at the 13th annual eTourism Summit, and I wish I had brought you a trophy. But is somebody from Visit Florida sitting in this audience? You guys will have to find them later and pat them on the back. Must be present to win, absolutely true. So I wanted to give you guys 6 takeaways for winning the prize next year. So this we already know. It's important to keep posting photos. And when I did a quick look through all of the relevant social networks to find out what these top brands were doing, Myrtle Beach, Florida, and Las Vegas, I found photos everywhere, so they're absolutely following this best practice. Post proportionally more videos. We talked about how videos are 4 times more engaging among users than the next type of moving images type of post. Since that's the case, but travel marketers are only posting videos around 5% of the time, you have a huge gap there to fill and an opportunity to use video to fuel your social marketing efforts. It also is important to understand what your audience is looking for. We learned today that they're looking for more video, they are engaged with video. What else are they looking for from you? You can glean some fantastic insights by using a free tool like Google Insights, Google Search Insights. For example, the screenshot here shows a search that I did for Florida vacation rentals. I also compared it to Vacation Myrtle Beach and Vacation Las Vegas. Just from this one particular search, if I dive deeper into any of these results, I actually will give you an example. I saw that for Florida, a huge majority of the traffic was coming from Tennessee. And from Tennessee, people were looking for Florida vacations. or Florida vacations cheap, or Florida vacations affordable, or Florida vacations where to stay. You can see what people are searching for, where they're coming from, where available, it will tell you their demographic. So now if Florida knows that just this huge influx of people from Tennessee are interested in going to Florida, it can use Facebook advertising to advertise specifically to those people. It can target them on Twitter, it can find them on LinkedIn because you know these insights. Another thing you're going to want to do is schedule your posts to coincide with all your target markets, right? So depending on where your brand is, you know what time zone you're in, but your customers or prospects or people who might be visiting your region might be coming from all different time zones. And we know that there's at least 3 hours of difference across the United States, an extra 3 if you're targeting Hawaii, and so on and so forth if you're going internationally. One post posted at the beginning of the day, your time, is not enough. The users across the world won't see it. It will disappear from their feed. So you might need to find technology that schedules things for you so that you know that you're hitting all of your target markets at exactly the time that they're online. Number 5, you want to run promotions across target social networks to generate leads to feed other marketing initiatives. A lot of the travel marketers that we work with at Wildfire have told us that their most popular method of converting leads and prospects is through email. And that's fine. Nobody's saying you have to replace your email marketing efforts with social media, but you should be using social media to facilitate your email marketing efforts. By running promotions, such as Las Vegas does, for example, know the code, you can sign the oath, because again, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and you can sign the oath attesting to that. There's a Sports Illustrated campaign down there. There's a sign up to get more information about deals in Las Vegas. These promotions allow signups, and signups are incredibly important because that is how you generate leads from these social channels. And finally, isolate and target influencers and brand advocates to help generate more earned media for your brand. Who are the people that are talking about you most? Who just went to a vacation in Florida and loved it so much that they posted about it and posted their pictures across all their networks and actually have a huge network of friends who looked at those pictures and now also want to take a vacation to Florida? There are tools that allow you to see this. For example, on Google+, you can actually view ripples, is what they're called, for any post that was created publicly. You can launch into it like I did for American Airlines, and I can see that a person named Pravin Gade happens to have the widest network, and so he spread the information that American Airlines originated the farthest, right? So he extended it to his networks, and I can see that he's a power influencer. Watch this over time, and you will see who your influencers are. And I wanted to tell you briefly why I'm up here, why Wildfire is up here, in case you didn't know. Wildfire was recently acquired by Google because we are one of the leading providers of social media marketing software. Our software helps brands create social advertising campaigns and efficiently spend their money, create promotions to generate leads for that brand and to raise awareness and to raise earned media and chatter over social networks, to create pages and launch content, and to message effectively across regions, across organizations, across people with different levels of clearance and so on. So just wanted to make sure you knew why I was even invited here. And I thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you to our panel. That was some great information. We've got about 15 minutes left here in the end of the session. So wanted to do Q&A with the audience. Who wants to be the first victim? Thank you, sir.
My name's Rob Walgren. I'm from the Port of Seattle. And my question is there a best practice on the length of videos that you should be posting on either of your social platforms?
Okay. I have not seen any numbers as to the length. So I cannot attest that there are specific number of minutes that you should post. But I would imagine that if the trend that we know among users is to be true, which is that users are fickle and have very short time spans and very short patience, short videos that have a big reward are going to be the most engaging, right? And what do I mean by reward or payoff? the videos of laughing babies, the videos of dogs, chasing their tails, they're usually short and incredibly viral because they're easy to consume and the payoff is high, right? You laugh, it's enjoyable. So my cruise ship example, where I watched a person actually walk through the cruise ship, is probably not the most engaging. Then again, I was pretty far down the funnel, right? So I was pretty far down the funnel in that I was ready to buy a cruise ship experience, which means that I'm ready to give more time to watch that video. But if you're trying to hit users and prospects at the top of the funnel, I would assume that they have zero or little patience and need a lot to be engaged.
Also, in terms of return on investment, I was actually at Google yesterday, and they were talking about this feature on YouTube where you know how now when you're watching videos and you're seeing ads, like you get this notification that says you can skip this after 5 seconds. So what they said is that you don't actually have to pay for that unless the user watches it for, I think, 29 seconds. So that's something to think about. I mean, if you're trying to promote videos, in terms of ads, also like that's probably a good length to test, because if somebody's not watching the video for more than 29 seconds, you don't really have to pay for it.
If you use, this is a comment to the last question, if you use Wistia.com to put your videos into, it'll show you everywhere people bail out and stop watching your video. It'll tell you where people rewind and rewatch, where they pause, where they do it. It's like full integrated analytics for your video, and you can really get a good idea of what works and what doesn't and how long your video should be. Wistia.com, Wistia.com.
Thank you. Half the room was like, he said that too fast. I need to write that down. He said the word free analytics, and everybody perked up like, oh, okay. Any other questions? Who else has got one? We have a wonderful panel up there. They know quite a bit about Facebook, Google+, everything. What do you guys think about as far as when you're running an actual social media campaign or a social media presence, as far as being a branded profile, speaking as a brand, sort of behind the brand, not really telling people who you are, or versus the JetBlue example where JetBlue openly says, this is who's responding to our tweets or our Facebook posts today, and here's who they are, what their background is. Opinions on either sort of the hidden profile or the very public, here's who our employee is profile.
I would say that it depends on your organization's decided on service level agreement for social, right? So everybody's familiar with the service level agreement for your cable provider, your internet provider. You know that when you sign a contract with them, you can expect that they will answer your email within 24 hours, that they will answer your phone call within X number of hours, even though if it's Comcast, usually that's not the case. And so on, right? So it's
Zing.
important to consider within your organization what you're ready to commit to and how you're going to communicate that to users. So usually you'll see larger brands that have very stringent compliance and legal kind of foundations. They will commit their social service level agreement to their pages. It'll say on their Twitter, we're only answering from 8 to 5, or we'll be here for you from 8 to 5 in a more happy, upbeat way. On Facebook, on Comcast, or on Time Warner, you can actually see a tab that says, if you do this, you're banned. If you do that, you're banned. If you do this, you're banned. If you do that, you're banned. But otherwise, like, have a great time. So some companies will straight up post that, like JetBlue says, this is a different person posting every single time. That's part of their service level agreement. Whereas at Wildfire, it's always me, and I'm always posting on behalf of Wildfire, and I rarely will ever name myself. I don't hide it that it's me. If people ask, like, who are you? I tell them who I am, but generally speaking, I speak as the brand. So I say, we did this, and our employees did that, and we're so proud to announce, and so on. So it's really an organization level decision that you would need to make.
I just add that it probably also depends on the channel. So identifying who the real person is who is doing it. There's a lot of brands who do that on Twitter. On Facebook, it's rarely done. I think the Britney Spears Facebook page does it, where they have different teams from Team Britney posting, and then sometimes Britney herself posts. I think you also have to be...
Thank you for monitoring the Britney Spears Facebook page on behalf of everyone in the room who hasn't done that. Thank you.
I think it's also when you have multiple people. Twitter is more of a response tool. So there, an airline like JetBlue needs to have 24/7 coverage, which you cannot do by one person. But I think otherwise you also want to look at the voice of the brand. So when you look on Facebook, I think San Francisco, for example, does really a phenomenal job of having a very unique, distinct voice that's really San Francisco. And I think there would be detrimental to say, this is now XYZ posting and so on. So it really, in my opinion, really depends on the channel.
And then to follow up that thought, in terms of internal structure, is it more of a hub and spoke approach, or is it a sort of diversity type approach? Is there one central person inside a tourism organization that should handle all of it, or are we now seeing the social media responsibilities being spread out to various people in the organization, whether they're in marketing or communications or accounting even? We're now seeing social kind of move throughout the entire organization. Thoughts on, that sort of a process?
I think there's no, clear pattern. I think on the tourism side, and probably most of our clients are in tourism, so you probably can speak more for other industries. But I think there's a little bit of a struggle. Is it a PR thing or is it a marketing thing? And then you have the two departments sometimes in a tug of war. There is some organizations that have where 30 people have access to the Facebook account, and when they find something interesting, post. I think as organizations get bigger and their programs get more mature, I think that's an approach that's less likely, because I think you want to have a more strategic approach to content calendar and really have somebody who clearly is in charge. So for the clients that we work with who are bigger, there is usually one person who is in charge of social. They have multiple people in the organization who support them with content and so on. They might have a backup person when whoever is in charge, which doesn't have to be the person highest up the food chain in the social media department, but just have one person who's in charge. They have a backup system where if that person is in a meeting on vacation, somebody else is in there. But in most cases, I would say we see a hub and spoke approach.
Great. Well, get this question.
Oh.
Somebody's kid followed them to this conference. Go ahead, Maya.
I would echo that, and also say there's actually, that question gets asked a lot. And so one of the kind of leading industry analyst firms in the social sphere, they're called Altimeter, like similar to Forrester, Gartner, and so on. They publish reports, and they do it a lot around social and social media and how it changes the organization. And one of their reports actually did an analysis of the different kind of company structures that brands are kind of aligning themselves around when they're thinking about managing their social media. So one thing that's definitely true is that, usually it starts with one person, right? So at the very base levels, it's your intern or your daughter. I've seen that a lot, especially in small businesses. But when you have to scale, when you have multinational organizations, when you have even national like tourist convention bureaus, there's major organization needs to be done around your social media, and you can't depend on one person. What if they want to go on a vacation? What if they need a break? You need to be able to scale that. So there's a bunch of different models, including hub and spoke. There's also the opposite of hub and spoke, like some of the biggest brands in the world. And I don't remember what it's called exactly, but they have a center of excellence. So they established this social media center of excellence with all of their rules, regulations, guidelines around brand voice, and things that they will post, things that they won't post, language that they do use, language that they will never use. And then they empower all of their employees to post on their behalf. IBM is an example of this. If you're an employee of IBM, one of nearly 400,000, which I was before I worked for Wildfire, you are empowered to speak on behalf of IBM. You can start an IBM blog. You can say, I'm an IBM employee on your Twitter account and speak on their behalf, if and only if you agree to that internal IBM Center of Excellence service level agreement that you will speak in this way, you will not speak in that way, you won't use this kind of language, and you will use the other, and so on and so forth. So it depends on across your organization, but there are a number of models. I would look into that Altimeter report to see how you can structure your organization. And if you guys want a link to that, I'll have a stack of business cards that you can grab. You can email me and I'll send it to you.
I got a question here, just looking for a point of view for global marketing brands. who are marketing in multiple countries around the world, and recommendation on one global Facebook page versus multiple?
So I don't know if you were on the Facebook tour yesterday, because I asked Facebook in the group that that got to eat lunch later. That group, I asked Facebook the question because so far Facebook had always said, and there's numerous statistics that show that engagement is higher if you have a brand page per country. Social Bakers did a study around it, so the only brand that has consolidated country pages to a global page is Heineken. Everybody else is going the other way. So I asked Facebook yesterday if that's still the case, because they're making changes on the post level, where at the moment you can target people already by different countries or by different languages. And I think it's only logical that they will break it down more, and they will say, now I can do a post and I can target only females or only that age group, and so on. And it's just basically the same thing that you can do for Facebook advertising. So the interesting thing was, and I don't know if the lady from Philadelphia who was in that session yesterday, who nearly fell off her chair. So it'd be interesting to get your perspective. But basically, what I heard is that Facebook, in a very by the way way, said, "Yeah, we are working on a new product that will completely change how global brand pages are going to be set up." The way I understood it, but again, it would be other people who were in that session would be interesting to hear your thoughts. What I heard is there's going to be a global brand page umbrella, and there's going to be country pages that sit under that. They might all tie back to the same your vanity URL, but you will still have the ability to have a country page. And then Facebook said, the people who were in the presentation, most of the products that roll out, we only hear about it when they're launched, so we really also don't know a lot more about it. I mean, anybody else who was in that session who wants to add? Or I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. No?
Great. So I just want to thank our panel one more time. Martin, Ori, Maya, thank you very much. Round of applause, please.